Let's get started. Thank you all very, very much for being here today. My name's Rich Lyons. I'm the Dean of the Business School here at Berkeley-Haas. And look, these Dean Speaker Series are always terrific, and today is certainly no exception. It's an absolutely exceptional person that I have the honor to introduce to you, and I will do that. That is Mr. George Halvorson, Chairman and CEO of Kaiser Permanente. We are well aware that he receives many speaking invitations, and we're just so pleased that he is with us here today. With us here today in a topic that, look, he is undoubtedly one of the thought leaders in this area and has been deeply involved for many years. His experience is over 30 years in the healthcare management industry. We've asked him to speak today about diversity, inclusion, and how it drives the core of his business, not just as a sideshow of what he does. How does it drive value in the core of his business? This is an exciting topic for us here at Berkeley-Haas. We just finished a strategic plan in the diversity area a year ago. We're implementing a lot of that here at the school, at the campus. The Chancellor's commitment to this area is unmatched. So this is a perfect fit, and also at a business school where we're thinking about how do you drive a business by driving diversity. This is an exciting topic, and he is perfectly suited to deliver in this area. Look, we live in an economic world that is increasingly diverse culturally, racially, and in many other dimensions, and we're all familiar with that. So how do we think about this strategy, how it links to the school, how it links to not just an industry, but obviously one of the most fundamental industries society is working through these days. Many of us have a sense for the stresses in the industry, the seeming unsustainabilities of it, and that is going to tie into a lot of the things that he thinks about and has worked on. Kaiser Permanente, a few comments on the firm and also a few comments on Mr. Halvorson. It's the nation's largest nonprofit health plan and hospital system, serving about 9 million members, generating close to $50 billion in annual revenue. Prior to Kaiser, Mr. Halvorson served as president and CEO of Health Partners. He was in that role for 18 years. That's headquartered in Minneapolis. He served as an advisor on issues of health policy and financing, governments Uganda, Great Britain, Jamaica, Russia, and others, so a truly global perspective. His comparative insights on healthcare systems is absolutely remarkable, and we got a chance to hear a little bit about that over lunch. He's writing a new book about racial prejudice around the world. This is a rangy thinker, and that's part of what we're all here for. He's an author of numerous other books on the U.S. healthcare system and also the world healthcare system, including one that you will all be receiving a complimentary copy of, this wonderful book here, Healthcare Will Not Reform Itself. And it is wonderful perspective, and he will talk a bit about that here today, though the focus of the talk is, of course, diversity. He's widely credited with supporting the successful rollout of Kaiser's multi-billion-dollar information technology initiative. This is a signature initiative in the healthcare industry, but obviously at Kaiser as well. He has won numerous awards for this and other breakthrough initiatives. Today, more than 9 million patients, as I mentioned, now have their records in Kaiser Permanente computers, and more than 12 million yearly e-visits. So this is part of this IT revolution that Kaiser has been helping usher in the industry. And these are chosen by patients, these e-visits, in lieu of face-to-face and clinical visits, which are obviously more expensive for society to provide. He serves on a number of boards and committees. I could go through the long list. There are many of them. Current president of the International Federation of Health Plans, chairman of Partnership for Quality Care with Service Employees International Union. In 2009, Governor Schwarzenegger appointed him to a bipartisan commission on the 21st century economy and to focus on California and how to modernize its out-of-date revenue laws. He served as healthcare governor since 2005 at the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos. Look, I could go on and on. This is an extraordinary individual. It's an extraordinarily important topic. Mr. Halvorson, thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very kind introduction. It's my great pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to having this conversation. Our country is becoming increasingly diverse. Can you hear me, by the way? Is the microphone good? Our country is becoming increasingly diverse. We, as a country, for a couple of centuries, had a relatively low level of diversity, and we are becoming increasingly diverse at a very rapid rate. And we need to deal with that diversity and address it and take advantage of it. We need to turn our diversity into synergy and opportunity, and we need to avoid having our diversity drive us into the paths that we see in much of the rest of the world. Diversity can lead to division, can lead to separation, can lead to challenges. And I'll talk about that a little later in the talk. And diversity can also lead to great outcomes and to really good results and to the right environment. So we need to do this well. As we become more diverse as a country, we need to address the issues that are created and take advantage of the opportunities that are created. And I'm going to talk about both those. I'm going to talk about them in the context initially of Kaiser Permanente. So bear with me while I talk a little bit about Kaiser Permanente and our diversity situation and journey. And then I'll talk more broadly about diversity in general. And I'm looking forward to a question and answer period. So as we go forward, think about the questions that you might like answered in this process. So let me talk a little bit about Kaiser Permanente to begin with. We have basically 9 million members. We have about 180,000 employees. We have 16,000 physicians. We're the largest private medical group in the world. And what makes us different than most of healthcare delivery is that we have vertically integrated care. We have all of the pieces. We have the labs, we have the pharmacies, we have the clinics, we have the hospitals. All of the pieces are inside Kaiser Permanente. We're bigger than 42 states and 135 countries. And we function like a national healthcare economy because we have the total accountability for the health, and we basically have all of the pieces. We have all aspects of care delivery inside KP. So when we think about healthcare, we think about all of the pieces. The rest of healthcare is very splintered. People have one area, one subset of healthcare, or they focus on that subset of healthcare, and the rest of healthcare is funded by fees, and so people focus on a subset of healthcare and at a revenue based on fees. And we have complete, total vertical integration of our care delivery, and we are blessed with having prepayment. We get a premium from our members, and because we get a premium up front, we're not subject to the tyranny of fees. We can figure out what the right care delivery is, and we can deliver the right care. So we've cut the number of broken bones in our seniors by nearly half, and we've done that with doing care delivery that if we were reimbursed on a Blue Cross fee schedule, 6 of the 9 things that we do to cut broken bones in half would not show up on the fee schedule. We would basically have twice as many seniors with broken bones if we only did the things that are on the fee schedule. So we are blessed with vertical integration, we're blessed with the prepaid cash flow, and we have the world's largest electronic medical record, and we made a commitment a few years ago because we are vertically integrated, because we have all the pieces and we're totally accountable for the patient, that we want all of the information about all of the patients all of the time. So we have everything on computer. We are completely and totally electronic, and in some of our care sites there is no paper. We've gone to a paperless model. So that does a little bit about us. I'm going to come back and talk about what we've done with that toolkit in a sec. But before I go there, let me talk a little bit about our diversity. So how diverse is Kaiser Permanente? Well, we are quite diverse. If you look at our membership is 52% majority and 48% minority. Now, we are in Hawaii, we are in San Diego, we're in Washington, D.C. If you look at the places, Kaiser Permanente is basically in 10 sites around the country, and most of those sites start with an inherent diversity of population. We have very diverse populations, and we are very attractive to a diverse population. So we are 52% of our members are majority. When you look at our workforce, we are even more diverse. 42% of our workforce is white. And so the majority of our workforce comes from diverse population. So we are very diverse in the staff. Now, there are a number of organizations in the country that say they've got and do have a very diverse front-level staff. Particularly a lot of the service industry companies have fairly diverse staff at the front level. Question is, what happens when you go up the chain of command? What happens when you get the supervisors, managers? What happens when you get to vice presidents, senior executives, and what happens at the board? How diverse is a company at the top level? How diverse, the question is, are we at our most senior organizational levels? And we are actually very diverse. We are governed at the very top level by a board of directors. The board of directors serves the basic functions of every board. If you look at Fortune 100 companies, right now 27% of the board members of Fortune 100 companies are diverse. That includes minorities and women. So it's a relatively small number. Now, we, as a $50 billion company, are in the top 50 of the Fortune 100 companies. So this is a legitimate scale for us to look at. How diverse are we? 40% of our board is white male. And the rest of our board is made up of Hispanics, Caucasian, or African Americans, Asian Americans, and Caucasian women. So our board is definitely very diverse. When you look at our senior management, that pattern continues. There are some organizations in this country that have diverse boards, and then when you get to the leadership, you end up with a very non-diverse leadership. So how diverse are we at the senior management level? We're organized into 8 regions. There are 8 Kaiser Permanente regions around the country. And when you look at the 8 regions, we are 50-50 split male-female, 50-50 split minority and white. So if you're in the chain of command at Kaiser Permanente and you're looking at the chain of command and you're in our regions, this is what you see. You see a very diverse set of presidents. What about our senior officers in Oakland? Our president's Bernard Tyson, and Kathy Lancaster is our chief financial officer. Our controller, Deborah, is also in the financial chain of command. So we have very senior officers are diverse. We have 3 group presidents, and the 3 group presidents, basically, we divide the country into 3 parts, and each of the group presidents runs a third, and the 3 group presidents are Donna Lynn, Ben Chu, and Greg Adams. Again, very diverse. So if you are working at Kaiser Permanente and you're looking up the chain of command, it doesn't make any difference what race or ethnicity you are or gender preference, you are going to see someone who looks like you further up the chain of command. And that's a really important message to send, because when you send that message, it lets people know that there's a meritocracy involved, and if you perform well, you're likely to get a hit. And the other thing I'll say about these people, they are all stars. These people are star performers. Every single one of these people is incredibly bright, very talented. They're gifted. They've got good personal values. They are good leaders, and they are star performers. And so when you look at these folks, one of the biggest mistakes that you make in the world of diversity is to promote people who are tokens, who are promoted for reasons other than their capability. If you promote people and they're not capable, then all they do is impair and undermine the cause of diversity, because when they fail in the job, then you end up having all of the issues and the prejudices are reinforced. So that's not the model to use. The model to use is to hire very diverse people and hire stars. And when you add those two, you end up with a very good agenda. So we have very diverse senior leadership at KP. And as we look at the supportive care delivery, our goal is to provide the most appropriate care for all of our patients with great care. And to do that, one of the things we've done, as I mentioned earlier, is we've put in place the most complete electronic medical record in the world. We have fully computerized care sites, and we use that medical record to support care delivery. We use it to make care better. We use it to track care. We use it to improve care. We use it to remind patients and doctors about appropriate care. and I'll show you some of the results of that in a second. But one of the things our electronic medical record lets us do that nobody else can do is track care quality based on race and ethnicity, and race, gender, and ethnicity. And one of the things that we have done is in our medical record create files that let us do that work. So overall, HEDIS is the quality measurement system for health plans, as many of you know. Health plans are measured on their HEDIS scores in a whole series of areas. We have the highest HEDIS scores in the country. There are a couple thousand health plans in HEDIS. And the number one plan at the top of those categories, 20 categories, is Kaiser Permanente. But we're not satisfied with being just the best in the country. We also look at internally, how do we do relative to each of our populations? So if you look at this as a chart, for example, this measures how well we did in blood pressure control and for patients who are diabetic. And if you look at the numbers, the bottom line is our African American patients. We do not do as well on our African American patients as we do on our Hispanic and our Asian American patients. We are doing continuously better for every category. These numbers have been going up over quite a few years. But if you look at the top, even though the African American number has gone up, it is still almost 10 points below the number for, so we're working in that. We actually have people, very bright people, who are trying to figure out what's causing those differences and trying to figure out what we can do with education, coaching, direct patient contact, and we're trying to bring those numbers up. We set internal goals of bringing these lines together. And the other point I'd make is that orange line that runs across the bottom just before the African American line, that's the 90th percentile in the country. So 90% of all caregivers in the country do worse than that number. So we're in the top 10%. We actually lead the country on this measure. And even for the African American population where we do worse, we're in the top 9% of the country. So it's not a bad outcome, but from our perspective, it's not good enough. We need to get that right. We also make use of our database to do important research. We're sorting through this database to figure out things about care. And one of the things that we looked at was our doctors identified the fact that mothers who had a uterine infection during pregnancy seemed to have a higher percentage of kids who had asthma. So that was speculative. People said this seems to be true. When my mothers have had an infection, the kids seem to be more likely to have asthma. So we took a look at our database and we said, was that in fact true? Now, because we are who we are and because we have electronic database, we have all the data. So we had the data on the mothers, knew which ones had the infections. We also had the data on the kids. So in some other setting, and we also have it electronically. So in some other setting, you would have had to go out into a whole bunch of files to figure this stuff out. Kaiser Permanente, we were able to go into the computers and take a look at it. And what did we identify? We identified, in fact, the doctors who had that suspicion were right. And African American kids, if the mothers had that infection, were 98% more likely to have childhood asthma. Hispanic population was 70% more likely to have childhood asthma. The Caucasian population was 66% more likely to have childhood asthma. And what do you think the number was for Asian Pacific Americans? 0. None. There was no additional, same treatment, same clinic, same doctors. We're a perfect place to do research because the only variable that changes is the variable that we're studying. Because we're the same care site, same benefit package, same everything else, same formulary, same drug, same treatment. And what we discovered was that for the Asian American kids, 0 increase. So we know there's a DNA-related issue. There's got to be something going on. We have to figure this out. It could be diet, but diet's not going to have 0. Diet might have a 30% or something. So we're looking at that one. So part of what we're doing at KP is we're building a DNA database. We now have 200,000, and the database is actually on site here at Berkeley, but we have a DNA database of a couple 100,000 people, and we're relating the DNA database back to our medical record so we can figure things out about care delivery and figure out how we can intervene more appropriately. I'll go through a couple quick things. We have extensive language utilization. We have diversity as a basic strength. And when we look at diversity, we look at it from the perspective of diversity can lead to separation, can lead to division, can lead to intergroup stress, can lead to discrimination, and it can lead to disparities. And one of the things we study are the unconscious discrimination. We spend time working on issues of unconscious discrimination relative to care delivery, where the caregivers don't realize that they are making basically discriminatory decisions, but are doing it unconsciously. So we're working on that. So we know these things are all true, and we know that's true across the world. Or diversity can lead to inclusion, can lead to excellence, and can lead to care optimization. If you get the pieces right and you bring the best minds together and bring them together in a cooperative, collaborative way, you end up with a different outcome. And so the basic belief is that the difference lies in functioning as a Kaiser Permanente us. We are the people of Kaiser Permanente. We are people with a certain values, or people with a certain mission, or people with a particular direction. And internally we are inclusive and supportive and non-discriminatory. So we function as a collective us at Kaiser Permanente instead of as a collection of thems. And one of the things, when someone is a them, if you look around the world, the results are really grim. We ethnically cleanse them, we enslave them. There are horrible things that people do, nasty things to whoever is a them, and feel no conscience, feel no guilt. They firebombed Dresden. If you look at the things that have been done around the world, there is a set of behaviors that happens when someone is a them. When those energies are activated and those instincts are fully in place, people suspend conscience and do really, really nasty stuff. And when someone is an us, people are supportive, people are nurturing, people are forgiving, people are understanding, and people are collaborative and work well together. And so the challenge is, how do you create an us? How do you activate the instincts that relate to us and not the instincts that relate to us and them? And our belief is that we are all us at Kaiser Permanente. We're people committed to a mission, and our goal is to be the most effective, most patient-focused caregiver team in the entire world for the population we serve, which is, as I pointed out earlier, a very diverse population. So how are we doing? I'm going to go quickly through this part, but we're winning awards for diversity. The outside people, there are a number of organizations that rate diversity. We're working on the $1 billion roundtable for purchasing. We won the Catalyst Award last year for best place for women to work in the country. Diversity Magazine MBA rated us #1 place for diverse MBAs to work. We won that 3 years in a row. They actually retired the title, gave us a Lifetime Achievement Award this year, so they could give the award to somebody else next year. Tina Style rated us #1 Company of the Year. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce rated us highly on their roundtable. We've been recognized for multicultural linguistic achievement. Asian Pacific, we rated in the top companies, and we were #1 of the 20 organizations rated by that group. Best companies for Asian Enterprise Magazine for Asian Pacific Americans to work. We won the Disability Matters Award for disabled workers. We were the Corporation of the Year for the Hispanic College Fund. We were very proud of that. They don't give that out lightly. Supplier Development Council, we were Corporation of the Year. Hispanic Enterprise rated us in the top 50. Computer World, this is fascinating. Computer World, they rate all of the employers of IT in the world. And we rated in the top 16, actually, I guess. We were #16 in the country of all IT employers, but we rated #1 in healthcare. No one in healthcare was above us. And we rated #1 for diversity. They also rate diversity. So we were rated the best place for diverse IT people to work in the country. Diversity Inc. magazine does a very tough screening every year on rating the best companies on diversity, and we worked through that process, and we worked our way up from 36 to 27 to 7 to 4, and we did even better this year, but they haven't formally announced it yet, so we can't tell you what it is. So we win awards for diversity. So having won awards for diversity, how do we do then relative to actual delivery of care? If you think about, some people say we're having a hard time getting this work done because we're so diverse, or we're having a hard time getting this done because we got the challenges of diversity. And so how are we doing relative to the actual delivery of care? And basically, we win. We are doing really, really well. J.D. Powers rates companies around the country. Everybody's heard about J.D. Powers rating. They rated us #1. We were best on service. We had the best pharmacy program. We had the highest employer satisfaction. I mentioned earlier, HEDIS wins the quality scores for the country. We had 21, where we're the #1 in the country and in the world for HEDIS scores. HIMSS, the Health Information Management Society, rates all hospitals. They rated 3,000 hospitals in the country on their computerization levels and quality, and only 7 hospitals in the entire, or no, I'm sorry, 36 hospitals, 66 hospitals in the country got to stage 7. And we have 37 hospitals. 36 of our hospitals got to stage 7. And the one that's not there is one that we just opened last year, and it will be there next year. So we will almost sweep HIMSS for having the best computerized hospitals. Leapfrog Group, we're winning the hospital awards there. We are the only healthcare organization to win an uptime award, and we've won 6 of them. An uptime award means keeping your systems up and not crashing, and you have to, the standards are really, really high to win an uptime award, and we're the only healthcare organization to win one. And we've won now 6 of those awards. We have won for the largest electronic medical record. Satmetrics does an interesting program. They survey a large number of customers, and they ask them pluses and minuses of companies, and they rated healthcare organizations, and we won on this award. Now, we would not have won on this award if our employees, if our caregivers were not doing a good job of taking care of our people, because this is a reflection of satisfaction with the care being received in the organization, and we blew way past most of our competitors in the industry. And I'll touch on one more award. And Medicare rates health plans. Medicare has 459 health plans, and they rate health plans on a 1 to 5 star award, and they rate based on 53 separate quality and service levels. So they rate on your diabetic care, they rate on your care for people who are depressed, they rate based on your care for people who have broken bones. And they have a whole series. They have some kids, some scores for seniors, some scores for, actually Medicare doesn't have any score for kids, he just does. But they do have some, they do actually have some scores for younger people, because some of the people get into Medicare get in through disability. But Medicare has 53 separate quality measures. They rate on 1 to 5 scores, and they include things like the blood sugar control. And they rated 459 plans, and they gave 5 stars to 9 plans. Okay. And guess how we did? 5, our large 5 regions all won all 5 stars. And the lowest score that we got in any of our KP regions was 4.5. So in the toughest scoring system in the country, how well are we doing as a diverse organization in delivering care to our members? Basically, the most diverse health plan has managed to be the best plan for quality and for service and for value and for prices. We're also, and I'll touch on one other quick point, we're also the safest place to get care. Sepsis is the #1 killer in American hospitals. Sepsis kills more people than cancer, stroke, or heart disease. And what we have done on sepsis care is we have focused on those patients. We've committed heavily to getting those care right for those patients, and we've managed to cut the death rate from sepsis by over half. So we now have one of the lowest death rates in the country, and we might have the lowest death rate for sepsis. So the #1 killer, this is the equivalent of eliminating cancer deaths entirely. 24% of seniors who die in hospitals die of sepsis. So this is an important thing. So if you're looking at, are we a high-performing organization, the answer is yes, we are high-performing. And why are we high-performing? I think we're high-performing because we are a meritocracy. We truly are a meritocracy. We promote people and we support people based on their ability to contribute and to do the right thing with the right value sets. And we're a place where synergy happens and inclusion is the rule rather than the exception. And one of the things I've learned over the years is that the best people blossom when you look up the chain of command, you look at the organization, you have a sense that if I do really well and if I perform at a high level, then I am likely to be promoted and recognized and acknowledged. And we are very inclusive at every level. We have over 100,000 people on unit-based teams that are set up at the worksite to work with the individual units and function as teams. And the unit-based teams are all functioned on this value compass with the patient in the center. And so they sit down as a unit-based team at each worksite and figure out how can I do a better job of delivering care in my worksite with this focus. And we support the teams, and we have about half the teams are now high-performing teams. And it's part of the inclusion because, again, it includes everyone. We don't carve people out and say because you're in this job, you're off the team. We say if you are on the job, you're on the team. And so unit-based teams work really well. We have an annual diversity conference where we share best practices and teach each other how to do these things right. We're basically on a path to be the best hospital system and care plan building on the synergy. So basically concluding, diversity can take you down a couple of paths. You can be a diverse organization, diverse setting, diverse community, and choose to turn diversity into division, into them versus them, a whole bunch of thems at war with each other. Or you can choose inclusion in creating a collective sense of us. And we work very hard on creating a collective sense of us. It's value-based. We are all here to serve the members. We love the fact that we have diverse members. We love the fact that we have a diverse set of people working here. We love the fact that we can collaboratively do good things. We really like being number one. It's really good to win the awards, and that's good for our collective morale, and it's very reinforcing. But it happens because we are creating the collective sense of us and doing things collectively. So I'll basically end with that. It's the right path to be on. It's the right time to be on that path. The country is becoming increasingly diverse and splintered, and we need to basically show, prove, model, demonstrate, and achieve really, really good results in a diverse environment. And when I look around my executive table, when you look around some executive tables, you see almost clones. You see everybody that looks basically alike, same age, same race. And when you've got that environment around a table, it's not inevitable or guaranteed that you get clone thinking, but the odds go way up. The odds are good that you're not going to get the kind of synergy and creativity and responsiveness that you get. When you look around a table and everybody around the table represents a very diverse set of people, and they're all there because they're really good people, really smart people, and have good values, then the likelihood of success goes way up. And so that's a model we're using and seems to be at this stage working. So I'll say be well and open for questions. Any questions?
Hello, Mr. Halvorson. My name is Dilpreet Tung. I am a graduating senior here in the Haas undergraduate program. And I gotta say, one thing that I've been worried about more than finding a job is learning about insurance and how exactly I'm gonna pay for it in the future.
Yes.
And so I feel that a great opportunity or learning experience that I've been able to experience here at Haas was that I took an open innovation class, and it allowed me to actually work with insurance companies. And one thing that I did was I developed the employer engagement model in which I've been able to talk to different insurance companies and learn more about what exactly I do. And so my question is, how exactly is Kaiser Permanente working in building this open innovation culture within your firm, and if it's being more and more susceptible to work with startups?
We do a lot on innovation inside Kaiser Permanente. We actually have a place called the Garfield Center. And the Garfield Center is an innovation center. It's just outside of town here. And the Garfield Center and set up like a Hollywood film studio. It's a big warehouse, and we set up clinics, hospital beds, home care settings, and we model, test equipment, try different processes, and we do process improvement. We got process improvement design teams that do a lot of work. We have regular get-togethers of people to do collective creative brainstorming. We have that facilitated by external people, and as well as doing it ourselves. And we have joint learning sessions. We have websites internally where people in various areas can share information, share learning with each other. We're highly connected. We actually really work to facilitate ongoing learning. We also have a venture capital funding company, and we fund about 20 venture capital, make investments in about 20 venture capital, so people come up with new ideas, new technologies that might work to improve healthcare. If they meet our standard of actually having a high likelihood, we don't look for profitability, we look for having a high likelihood of improving healthcare. We invest in those companies, and we've done that for a number of companies. So we actually try to be creative, responsive, but if you've got some ideas though about how to do that, you can send me an email and I can put you in touch with our.
That would be great.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Happy to do it. Yeah.
My name is Moti Sorkin. I'm a first-year MBA student. I just had a question. It seemed like most of the metrics you described to validate the diversity at Kaiser had to do with either sex or race or ancestral origin. I was just curious if you could comment on some other metrics for determining levels of diversity.
Gender preference, are you thinking of, or what other age?
I was just curious if there were any others, because you seem
we actually don't put the gender preference numbers up there, but that's another thing that we look at is the issues of gay, lesbian, bisexual. And we've actually won quite a few awards in those areas as well, and we make that part of our inclusion and part of our goal setting. Age is something that we look at. The one area that we're just beginning to tiptoe into this year is veterans. We're trying to figure out how to do a better job with veterans. We've basically have our percentage of veterans as new employees, but we're working on things we can do to reduce barriers to hiring and do some training opportunities for people with veterans background. So those would be the other areas that we're looking at.
Hi, I'm Courtney Chandler. I work here at Haas. I'm also an alum of the MBA program too. You obviously show us a very convincing story why diversity is important in corporations. And my question to you is, when you guys recognized this, did you identify any strategy shifts in the way you recruit or hire your staffs or your doctors to represent that diversity initiative?
Well, yes. When we started down the path to being committed to the diversity, we made absolutely sure that we looked at minority applicants for jobs, and that we did that in a systematic way for jobs at every level. And again, we don't have a quota for hiring, but we do have a quota for interviewing, which is a different standard. And one of my requirements of all of our officers, senior officers, and managers is that everybody needs to be developing 3 people. So each vice president has to have 3 people that they're developing who could replace them at some point. And they should have 2 people who are almost ready, and then a third who's working. That's the kind of the standard is. As we do the annual reviews, we look at that. And the rule on diversity for the 3 is that you're not allowed to have all 3 who are the same. So you can have 2 black females, but you can't have 3. I mean, it doesn't count against you can have 3 if you want, but it doesn't count against the goal of having 3 people you're developing. And that's actually worked quite well, because it's caused people to think outside the box a little bit, and to think it creates a much broader context for diversity. And people also tend to hire people. I mean, we are very comfortable with who we are and people like us, and so there's just a natural tendency to hire people that we have comfort with, because you go to work and you want to feel comfortable doing your job. And so we have to make sure that we interview the right set of people, and also so that as you're doing your development, the development can't be just 3 people like me.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Halvorson. My name is Lanny O'Connell. I'm a junior Haas undergrad. My question is, what do you consider Kaiser's inimitable core competency, and how will you sustain and continually improve on this characteristic?
Our core competency is the ability to focus everything that's needed on a given patient. It's to get the science right, to get the care right, to get the team right. It's to be current and to have the right services needed for a patient. And we're not about billing events. We're not trying to do more CT scans. We're about doing the number of CT scans needed by a patient. So our patient focus, as opposed to our billing process focus, changes. And most of healthcare, for not their own fault, have to be focused totally on billing. They have to be focused on the things that will create a source of revenue. We've actually cut the death rate for HIV patients at Kaiser Permanente to less than half the national average. And we do 14 things to do that don't show up on the Medicare or Blue Cross fee schedule. But they work. The death rate is half. And if we just did what Blue Cross would pay for, we would have twice as many deaths in the HIV patients. So it's our core competency is that we can focus on the patient and not on the bill.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Hello, thank you for being here. I have many years of experience in startups, high-tech companies in the area, and I decided to go back to school because of all the issues that we have with healthcare, and have a dear friend at Kaiser, a manager, high-ranking manager, who brought me in for a project, and talking about diversity. Her mind was around diversity of skills.
Yes.
And that was a very rewarding experience for me. And hopefully I added value to the team that I was part of in re-engineering some processes. However, there doesn't seem to be much structured way of bringing in talent from other industries. So I'm back to high tech. So yep. While that was really fun to do, I felt that there was not a good track for me to continue. So is there a way for kind of non-industry individuals with experience to enter the Kaiser Permanente structure?
That's a good question. We do bring people in. When we were converting to the electronic medical record, we actually reached out to the banking industry and brought in quite a few people because banks had gone through the same kinds of process of going from paper and individual files and to having collective information that had to be carefully protected. And so we learned a lot from banking people, and we do a lot of work with people who we're trying to be totally paperless in all of what we do and trying to be well connected. And so we're bringing people in to do things like do app development and that type of thing. I don't know how many people here are KP members, but if you are a KP member and you have a smartphone, you can go to that app, and that's my medical record. That's actually, my medical record is available to me any place in the world. This is in Norway and in Denmark right now, and in the Netherlands, by the way, it's against the law to have electronic medical records. And so if I open this app in the airport in any of those towns, I can actually be arrested. But this app lets me do scheduling, it lets me schedule my doctor, it lets me email my doctor, it lets me order appointments. I mean, the whole thing. What we're trying to do, the reason I mention that is because we're trying to be incredibly connected, and we're trying to figure out what's the next generation of care, and we believe that the next generation of care is going to be the fourth site of care. And the first site of care is the hospital, second site of care is the clinic, third site of care is the home, and the fourth site of care is everywhere on the internet, and we're trying to figure out what the internet care delivery mechanism should look like. And so we're trying to bring in people who have good ideas in those areas. And so our IT shop is a place we're most likely to be bringing in people from other areas, much less likely in our hospitals, but more like in our IT shop. And again, if you send me information about what you've done, I will pass it on to the hiring people in the IT shop and have them take a look at it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Steve Terasaki. I'm an alum from 89, the evening weekend program, MBA. I would like to follow up on your us versus them statements. I'm actually I'm a Kaiser member, and I'm very supportive of the Kaiser system. And my wife's on the delivery side of Kaiser Permanente too. So we've been very supportive of the healthcare system. However, in this healthcare industry, there's a lot of barriers and walls that get put up professionally. The doctors, the RNs, the LVNs, the maintenance people, and it's only compounded by the issue of compliance issues. Certain people can only do certain things, right. And that's all regulated, as we know. And on top of that, we then have the whole issue of labor unions and labor contracts, and what can be expected of different sectors of the employee population within Kaiser. So as you build this approach to us versus them, how do you get beyond those barriers? What are the specific tactical day-to-day programs that you have initiated within the organization to begin to overcome those walls and those barriers to actually create integrated teams of employees that are truly working to deliver healthcare, the best healthcare for your clients?
That's a really good question. The scope of practice issues have all kinds of legal implications to them because the law, basically the licensure laws limit, and also Medicare regulations limit what can be done by particular people with particular licenses and caregivers. We're doing several things. One of the things we're doing is team care. So we've got team care based on, our sepsis program is based on team care, our pressure ulcer prevention program is based on team care, and we have teams of caregivers, doctors, nurses, receptionists, other caregivers, working together on teams to focus on those areas. And that we have a philosophy of team care that requires kind of an interactive program. So internally, we're working on some of those issues. We're also working on care redesign, and we're actually working at a national level. Next week, I'll be meeting in Washington with the people at Secretary Sebelius' team to talk about setting up a national forum for scope of practice study, because we're looking for exactly the reasons you mentioned, trying to figure out how do we create flexibility, particularly at a time when there's going to be caregiver shortages in a number of areas. How do we create a formal way of getting at scope of practice issues that will allow the right result to happen? And we're doing that with the PQC organization, which has a representation from the major organized employers in healthcare in the country. So we've got so we'll have union leaders with us, meeting with the secretary and her team just to make this proposal, and we've already done the groundwork. But we're trying to go down that path. The country needs to go down that path, and there's all kinds of battles going on in all kinds of settings about exactly who should be doing what. And so we think what we need is a national center, and a national center that actually is focused on those issues and does some shared learning and does it in a way that we can all benefit from. So you're exactly right. That's a really important issue, and as we migrate healthcare to the next generation, we've got to figure out those issues, those boundary issues, and figure out how to have people only doing what they're capable of doing, but focusing at the top of their practice, not at the bottom.
We have probably just time for one more question.
Okay. My name is Richard Fessler. I'm a first-year full-time MBA student. It's clear from your presentation that Kaiser is taking advantage of this kind of reinforcing feedback of being a diverse organization, and then you attract diverse talent and promote diverse talent. And I imagine that organizations that are not diverse are stuck kind of in the opposite feedback loop, where they're not diverse and they can't attract diverse folks. So I guess what advice would you have for an organization that is not currently on that up escalator of attracting more diversity and then taking advantage from the gains of that diversity to kind of jump onto that?
I think an organization that needs to move up that continuum can find a lot of support right now. There's Diversity Inc. magazine has infrastructure around it that has some very smart people who can help organizations. You have to want to do it. If you make the commitment that you want to be more diverse and you want to take advantage of the growth opportunities from diversity, then the second step is to figure out what's the right strategy and what's the right approach. And there are some basic, very basic fundamental things you have to do. You have to model the behavior. And you also have to be committed at the CEO level. The CEOs of the organizations, if the CEOs are committed, the organizations can become more diverse. And if the CEOs are paying lip service to it and handing it off to HR is something that they do as one of the things they do on the side, the organization's less likely to succeed. So you need to model it, talk about it, demonstrate it. And then when the CEO, and this is important, when you make promotions, everybody in an organization looks very, very carefully at who you promoted, because everybody wants to get promoted. And so everybody looks at who you promoted, and then they read between the tea leaves, or they read the tea leaves, and they figure out, why did this person get promoted? What set of characteristics did they have? And if you promote a diverse set of people based on their merit, then everybody reads that. If you promote only white males based on the fact that they're white males, then everybody reads that as well. And that's a different message. One of the things that I say to CEOs of companies who are white males is, think about this. If you were going to work for a company tomorrow, and you're going in the door, and you looked up the chain of command, and you saw that the CEO and the C-suite and all the vice presidents were black women, what would that tell you about your personal chance of getting ahead in that company? And they say, darn, is that what it looks like? And I say, think about it. Just flip it over, make it black women, and imagine that that's a complete sweep. That the C-suite is entirely black women. And you think, okay, I get the message, because you have to communicate that. Once you get that, and you start sending a message, and you put people in key jobs who are more diverse, and you put women in key jobs, and that message is clear out through the organization, and then it's easier to do the levels below that. So, thank you.
All right. Well, please join me in thanking Mr. Halvorson for an inspiring talk.